coming up on the Venus Cuckoldress podcast.
Gay Twitter is pretty amazing. You can see some incredible bodies on there.
Right? I was just like, damn, this is really aesthetically quite pleasing.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how cuckolding would be that much easier and more prolific experies to be had.
Yeah, I mean, you get on Grindr and it tells you how many feet away somebody is. You know?
My God. Well, you're left out over there.
He thought he was denying me, and I was like, that's the point, babe.
You are now listening to the Venus Cuckoldress podcast, a place to learn all things cuckolding for the curious, the passionate, and the sexually empowered woman who wants it all. Go to venuscuckoldress.com. You'll find the new Queen's Quarters fan destination. Book a one-to-one chat with me, listen to the private podcast, and even get access to my secret Snapchat group where I share some of my most intimate encounters. Now sit back, make yourself comfortable, and let's dive right into this episode. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am your host, Venus. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today. This is going to be such a fun one. I had such a great time doing this episode with my friend Thomas, who goes by GayCuckoldHubby on Twitter. And this was my opportunity to really learn all about gay cuckolding, and it was absolutely fascinating. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun right now with that. And of course, this is just in time for Pride Month. It is June, and it's that time of year when all the homophobes get all up and uncomfortable. So hopefully you're not listening to this because you're going to be a whole lot of uncomfortable. This is for allies only. And anyway, we're just going to have a lot of fun doing this. Like I said, we're going to talk about all of the similarities, the differences when it comes to hetero and gay cuckolding. And yeah, it's just going to be a good time all around. Now, before we get started, I have just one announcement. That's it. Just one. And it is that the next Pillow Talk is coming up Thursday, June 15th. And it is going to be some, let me tell you, big slut energy with, of course, my very good friends, Scarlett and Anya. They are the co-founders of Slut Sisters. And also they are hosts of the Flaming Yoni podcast. They are going to be joining me for a live crowdcast event called Pillow Talk, where you get to ask questions, watch, listen, hang out, chat, do all that fun stuff while we talk about big slut energy. It's going to be a good time. So it is free for you to register, free for you to catch it live. And that's going to happen June 15th, 12 p.m. Pacific. That's 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to watch the replay, you can, but you need to be a member of the Queen's Quarters supporter group. So a couple of things. You can go to venuscuckoldress.com, click on the events page to register. Click on the Queen's Quarters page if you want to learn about how to support the podcast and get all of the amazing perks like the replays of the Pillow Talk episodes. Okay. That's it for announcements. Super quick today. Let's jump in to this show with my friend GayCuckoldHubby. Joining me on the show today, I have my friend Thomas, who goes by GayCuckoldHubby on Twitter. I'm so excited to have you on the show today to talk about gay cuckolding, a topic I have not talked about on the show before, but this is right on time for Pride Month. So welcome to the show, Thomas. Say hello to all of the listeners.
Hello. Thank you so much, Venus. I'm super excited to be on the show, super excited to be doing this.
Yay. Okay, so I'm just going to read your Twitter bio to give the listeners a little bit of an idea of who you are and what you're all
Sure.
about. And then I'll have you talk about how you got into all of this. So your bio says submissive top, and top in quotation marks. A beta who loves when my slutty husband cucks me with bigger men. I am sensing a size queen, size king theme.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Is there such thing as like a size queen in gay?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you hit it on the head. Size queen is the term that's used.
Okay, so not size king or size prince or something.
Might need a bit of an update, but yeah, no, size queen has definitely been used.
Okay. This is part of why I really wanted to do this show is because like I am genuinely so fucking curious to know what the similarities are
Mhm.
in gay cuckolding and hetero, and then like what are some unique kind of differences. And we'll get into that. But first of
Sure.
all, I want to know, or I want you to share your story about how you got into this and your relationship and that sort of thing.
Sure. Well, first, just a little bit about me. I'm 42 years old. I've been married since my early 20s. I think that probably kind of plays a lot into it. I didn't have a lot of experience before getting married. Um, but yeah, I've been with my husband for many years. We were completely monogamous for the first 7 or 8 years, and hadn't really discussed or even thought about kind of opening up the relationship in any way. But I had these fantasies. I was scared to admit them for a long time, but I had the fantasies. I held them into myself, and slowly, as I think probably we grew more comfortable with each other, more comfortable expressing some fantasies that started coming out more and more. It became intriguing to the point of, should we actually try this? And we did. We both loved it. We were both scared going into it, but we both loved it, and we've been doing it for several years now. Like kind of as an identity, we've been
Yeah.
delving into that.
That is so fascinating to me. So where did these fantasies come from? Did you like watch it in porn, or did it just organically just this is what turns me on and I'm fantasizing about these things, or how did the cuck switch get flipped for you?
So I feel like I've always been kind of fascinated by some power dynamics, like that kind of kink, like a little bit of submissive nature. I'm submissive early on. In my 20s, I was still trying to figure that out: dominant, submissive, and there's a lot of flexibility within that. But as I was figuring this out, I was looking into porn, and back then, like in my early 20s, there was literally zero gay cuckolding content. Could not find it. It wasn't on Google, anything. So I didn't even really understand that it existed. But I did see some straight cuckolding porn, and the dynamic in there really spoke to me. And I
Ah,
just immediately was like, I identify with that husband, watching. And again, just thought it didn't exist. And then Tumblr came along, and that changed a lot of things. People started kind of making their own content, and if not making it, they started pulling content and little clips from here and there and started creating their own narrative with it, and started giving their own backstory to some erotica. And then a community started kind of developing from that.
okay. So, yeah, I feel like cuckolding in porn was just not a thing back then. And then
Yeah.
everybody just kind of like there was this wave, this tidal wave of cuckolding stuff that came out on Tumblr, and
Hmm.
because that's like when I was first learning about it, people
Right.
were sending me to Tumblr. And I was just like, I didn't really understand this. I'm like, is this supposed to be a blog or is this just porn? Because like everything they sent me was like straight up porn memes and shit like that. So I
Yeah.
was like all confused, but there was a
Right.
lot of content there. So I see how that community kind of started there. And now what do you think? Like now it's kind of like everywhere.
It's pretty much everywhere. There's so much of it in pop culture. There's references in so many movies and TV series, and but yeah, I mean, I think Tumblr was great because it finally gave like actual people with different experiences could start describing what they were doing. So in the past, porn is always traditionally done by heterosexual men who are directing it, and it just kind of has one viewpoint. And then once you were able to get more people involved in that, what I've seen, what you have done, and what I've seen from Cuckolders is Not Wise has been great. It's changed the dynamic a little bit, but it's actually allowed people to probably get outside of the pornification of cuckolding and get a little bit into the reality of it. And I think for a long time that just wasn't the case. So I think, I think that Tumblr and then Twitter, anywhere that has kind of an open space that people can create community is fantastic.
Yeah, those spaces are slowly disappearing, though.
I know it's scary. I was locked out of Twitter for like a week last week for about a week for, I can't remember. It was like copyright infringement or something like that. But I've lost one account already, and I know that I keep reading so many articles about all these spaces being taken away.
Yeah.
From consenting
it's really shitty.
It really is.
Okay, so going back to when you first were having these fantasies, you said that you were afraid to bring it up to your partner. This is such a cuck thing.
Right? It really is. And then it's like this whole cycle of shame, which cucks tend to eroticize. So it's a whole thing where eventually we did end up talking about it. But yeah, it was definitely we kind of didn't have a whole lot of discussion. I mean, I feel like there's probably some differences between gay and straight people. Is when a straight couple gets together, I think it's changing a lot, but it used to be you had these expectations of monogamy, and that was kind of it. You didn't even have the discussion. So gay men kind of have to have the discussion because you don't have this expectations. So we discussed whether we wanted to be open or not, and it just didn't, for both of us, I think at the time, we didn't really want to go down that avenue. We were super happy being monogamous. So it felt like a violation kind of to want to bring this up to him.
Okay.
And then it took a while until he showed some kind of interest in maybe opening something up where I became emboldened enough to mention it and to start talking about it.
Were you guys like vanilla, or did you have some like power dynamics things?
We had some power dynamics. I mean, light BDSM, a little bit of tying up, that kind of thing. So it wasn't like we were, completely vanilla. But I think that we both kind of had a bit of a sexual animal inside of us that we were just kept holding back a little bit, for not even for any good reason. Just yeah.
Well, I mean, you got married young, right?
We did, early 20s, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty normal, I guess, that you would grow and evolve sexually together. But you're just so lucky that you guys ended up going down the same road together and enjoying it and all of that.
Exactly. I mean, I remind myself and him of that all the time, how lucky we are, because it is a interesting dynamic that really takes two people who are in a way polar opposite to make it work, but have to have the same end goal. And yeah, I just got really lucky. He's super he's been super flexible and understanding, and he didn't understand it at first, to be honest. Like, he didn't quite understand it. We did a lot of talking about it before anything got acted on. But yeah, he was kind of confused at why I didn't want to be involved more, because part of everyone explores cuckolding differently, but mine is kind of the removal of myself. And that's kind of the turn on. And he kind of didn't understand that. He was like, well, why aren't we just having a threesome? Or,
Right, because it seems so unfair, right? Like,
right.
One person's getting all this sexy fun, and then
exactly.
He thought you're left out over there.
He thought he was denying me, and I was like, that's the point, babe.
Oh my God, I love it. So what was that first experience like? You said you guys talked about it a lot beforehand, which is great.
Yeah.
But what was it like? You had to find a bull, or was it a bull, or just some dude?
Yeah, it was just some dude, and that's kind of it's like cuckolding is an identity for me, and it's something that we do for fun, but it is not. It doesn't completely involve our lives, so we don't. We tend to do more like a hookup or something like that,
Yeah.
and we kind of create that dynamic between my husband and I, because it's a little bit hard to find a bull in the gay community. It's just not understood as well.
I was going to
I don't
ask
think
you
so.
about that because it's hard in
Yeah.
hetero land too. Like,
I should say it's very easy to find somebody who is willing to fuck your husband, but for someone who gets the dynamic is a little bit more challenging. But and it comes in waves depending on how we're doing emotionally, all that kind of thing. So sometimes we go through long spaces of not doing something, and then we get a little spurt. And
right.
But yeah, I mean, it's the first couple times I wasn't there at all. It was something that we discussed about. He basically went and had a hookup, came back, described it in details. We had like aftercare, the good stuff, and then we had those dynamics later on. It wasn't until honestly like probably 2 years into that we kind of had our first cuckolding where I was present in the room and
right. Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see how the hookup would be a lot easier to arrange and carry out than finding an actual like bull for a real, I don't know, cuckolding scenario.
Right.
But the
super easy to find hookups, but
yeah. But the hearing about it afterwards, that's hot as
it's so
fuck.
hot.
Like, did that turn you on times a million? Or what?
Yeah, that's when I was like, before it was theoretical, but when it finally happened, it was like, okay, this is clicking. I mean, this is good. This is what I needed. This is what I wanted, and it worked for both of us. And it got him. I think it sexualized him in a very good way that he needed. So he came home and he felt. When he was telling me and he saw my reaction to it, he felt empowered and he felt super sexy. Yes. Getting to talk about this and seeing how I viewed him sexually.
Yeah. And that's the amazing part is you kind of like feed off of each other. Yeah. Like the more your partner is like insanely turned on and just fired up completely, the more you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay. So what's the equivalent of cleaning up with gay cuckolding? What is there like, is there the equivalent of that?
There is. I think probably the same terminology too.
Okay,
right?
so
cleaning up, yeah.
Was that just like eating his ass, or
yeah,
what? Like
eating ass afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I really don't even know all of this stuff. So
yeah.
Okay, I'm learning. This is Gay Cuckolding 101 here.
Absolutely, a little education never hurt.
So is it that because for me the whole like really the pinnacle of the cuckolding experience for me is the cleanup. Mm-hmm. And that's not for all cuckolding couples, right. For sure. But does it have that same kind of significance like in the gay
So
cuckolding?
from everyone I talk to in my community, it does. I'm one of those who isn't super into cleanup. We also, generally speaking, unless there's like been more of a history, we usually use condoms. So I love eating his ass afterwards. Like if a guy's been like using a condom, because I just like the sensation is super sensitive to him. He really gets off on that as well. But yeah, the cleanup thing is not quite as big for us, but from everyone I've talked to who does it, it's huge. I mean, I think it gets the same rush. It gets that
really,
yeah, that same power imbalance. Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. And okay, so in hetero cuckolding, I think like the part of the difficulty in finding a bull is for her to feel safe with the situation, especially if her husband's not going to be there and stuff like that. Hookups are a little bit more challenging because you have to worry about your safety and your comfort level and stuff like that. And you're meeting just some random person. But from listening to Dan Savage's show, one of the things that he brought up about that is that in the gay community, there just isn't that much of a worry about that. So hookups are
Yeah,
so much easier. So
absolutely.
I can definitely see how cuckolding would be that much easier and more
Yeah.
prolific experiences to be
It's yeah, I
had.
mean, you get on Grindr and it tells you how many feet away somebody is, you
Oh
know.
my God.
And yeah, there's not that much. I mean, obviously you take precautions when you need to, but yeah, there's
Yeah.
not that level of fear that it's much more normalized, the hookup
Yeah.
culture. So it's definitely easier to find someone to hook
But
up with.
why are there so few guys out there who understand the role of the bull?
Um, I think it's because you just want to have more. So you want more people involved. You don't want to like be excluding someone. That's the biggest thing that we've gotten anyway, is people being like trying to turn it into a threesome rather than
Okay.
you know. Um, so people can get it, but then you have to find somebody who's also like a personal. I get excitement out of someone being a little bit more aggressive when they're with my husband. He loves it too. And you have to find somebody who does it to the right level. There's still a lot of things to work out with. So it's easy to have someone for a quick fuck. It's much harder to have someone who my husband really connects with, because I love seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an overlap there.
Yeah. For sure.
And is there some cases or some instances where cuckolding couples really enjoy a polyamorous type relationship with a bull?
For sure. Or that's my understanding of it anyway. We've never gone down that road. We kind of, I don't know if it's just our personalities or what it is, but we definitely have a disconnect sexually and emotionally, at least past the hookup, right?
Right.
And we've had some, like longer term fuck buddies that kind of been bulls, but it's always been a clear distinction. I do know of some people who have invited a third in more long term. So yeah, there's definitely polyamory, and everyone kind of approaches those situations differently.
Mm-hmm.
For my husband and I, that's something we haven't dealt with yet. It's just not been at the top of our priority levels at all, or it's just something that hasn't arisen for us. But I do know that a lot of people do.
And do any of your friends or anything like that know about this lifestyle that you guys live?
And I've got a couple friends who I talk a little bit about, but we're kind of private people anyway. And I find that kind of the privacy in a way enhances it, or the, not the privacy, but kind of I guess there's like a taboo nature of it. I kind of feel like that enhances it a bit, like
Yeah.
that we're not sharing this part of our lives with everyone.
Right. It's a secret.
Yeah. Secrets can be fun.
So I completely agree. The taboo nature of it is what makes it so hot, but
Absolutely.
it also can be a source of kind of debilitating shame for a lot of guys out there who are having cuckolding fantasies. Was that ever an issue with you? Did you have to like work through that at all, or what?
I mean, I think I had to work through it personally before I even mentioned it to my husband, because I kind of went into the marriage with kind of the idea of what the marriage was going to be. And it was going to be a, passion-filled, monogamous marriage till the end of life, and that's what I had pictured and envisioned. And then, I would have these fantasies and kind of put them back in the corner, or, I'd play around with them by myself for a little bit and then ignore them. But they just kept on recurring. And I was like, this is something I might actually want to explore. And the more I thought about actually exploring it with him, the more it became like, oh, this could be something that could actually enrich us rather than necessarily pull us apart. And there's a lot of fear too of like, what if you introduce someone else and then your partner leaves for them, or there's a lot of that fear that goes with it.
Absolutely. That's definitely an overlapping fear for sure.
Yeah.
And then also there's a lot of people worry about, what if my partner likes us too much, and
Right.
then our relationship is damaged and we
Mm-hmm.
can't go back to the way things were, kind of thing.
In
I
a
get
way that
that.
might be true. I mean, it's definitely stepping off a ledge. I mean, you're trying something new, and not everyone can handle it. And I've heard from people who can't. But I've heard way more happy stories about people who've been able to grow from it.
hmm do guys reach out to you for, questions and advice and suggestions and stuff like that?
For sure, my DM is on Twitter is always full, and please, anyone who wants to chat can do that. But and we have some like small groups of people also, like a kind of group chat kind of thing where we talk about it, and people. Some people talk about their fantasies, but some people talk about the reality of it too. And I think probably, the biggest kind of one of the bigger overlaps probably between gay and straight men is still the fear of rejection and the fear of vulnerability. So there'll be people who are in completely open relationships who are afraid to tell their partner about their cuckolding fantasies. And some of that is in gay communities, there's a very, it's kind of common to have a don't ask, don't tell policy.
Okay.
Like as a couple, like, okay, you can kind of go do what you want when I'm not at home on the weekend. Just don't tell me about it. So there doesn't have like jealousy. And some people have that and their partner seems happy with it. So they don't want to break that. They don't want to break that routine. Or they don't want to admit their vulnerability into like maybe being interested in humiliation or these different aspects. And it's still that big fear, which is kind of crazy. You can have a completely open relationship but be afraid to talk about cuckolding.
I know, that seems so crazy. Like, wow, is cuckolding really on that much of a level where it is like so fucking taboo that even people completely open-minded to non-monogamy or even kink still don't want to talk about it, don't want to bring it up, or are scared? Like, oh, that's
I have noticed. I mean, it's definitely, though, the last several years, there's definitely been more gay couples who've been like wanting to experiment with it. And they don't even necessarily see it as a lifestyle or an identity. They just like, oh, well, this would be a fun scene tonight. And they play around with it. So it's, I mean, there's definitely more of it going on now, but I have definitely got those DMs from people who are like, I know my husband is sleeping with other people, but I'm afraid to admit that I'm a cuckold to him.
Yeah, I really want him to tell me about it and
exactly
make fun of me about it. But
exactly.
So in hetero cuckolding, there's definitely a wide spectrum. You've got like hot wifing, and you've got the more kind of extreme cuckolding and BDSM combined. On the other side, is it the same with gay cuckolding?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably a lot of people, gay people interested in the cuckolding kind of dynamic, a lot of them probably fall more on the stag spectrum.
Okay.
Or hot wifing, I guess it would be, where it's more about sharing and kind of celebrating your partner's sexuality, but it doesn't have that kind of humiliation or power imbalance.
Okay.
Mine does. That's what gets me off, but not so many of them do. There's probably a little bit more of a stag and hot husband, I guess.
Yeah.
Hot hubby and
hot
stag.
Hubby.
Yeah. Hot hubby and stag kind of dynamic is probably more popular, or not more popular, has more people involved in it.
Okay.
In the gay community.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. And then what about interracial cuckolding? Like, I know in heteroland, that's like really a big thing for a lot, not all, but like for a lot, it's there's a big spotlight on it. Is it the same with gay cuckolding? I
think that's probably a smaller subculture within cuckolding with the gay community. It's definitely there, but I think, I can't remember how many, it was like maybe 5 years ago or something. There was a kind of a first study on gay cuckolds, and it was done by Dan Savage, Justin Lay Miller, and Dr. David Lay. And it was really fascinating, but they found some similarities, but they definitely found some differences too. And one of the main differences is the interracial aspect wasn't there nearly as much for gay couples. Also, there wasn't as much focus on humiliation. So kind of going back to the stag thing. But yeah, I mean, there definitely is a subculture within that where it's, the big black bull kind of dynamic.
Isn't that
And
fascinating?
And as you can maybe see from my Twitter account, I definitely have a strain of that in there as well.
I did notice.
Right?
I actually really enjoy your Twitter feed, which I don't normally watch porn on Twitter. I usually rarely, if ever, seek it out on there. But there's something about the videos that you post that I find like so sexy. And I don't know if it's because like it seems like with the gay cuckolding porn, like it captures those teasing moments a little bit better. For me anyway, like there's the audio, the verbal part of it is more fun or there's just more of it. And I don't know, maybe it is that also that there's a lot of gay guys who have like just amazing fucking bodies. Like,
right?
I'm like, you all go to the gym like all the fucking time.
Gay Twitter is pretty amazing. You can see some incredible bodies on there.
Right? I was just like, damn, this is really aesthetically quite pleasing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do really enjoy your Twitter. I did notice that a little bit of a theme about interracial on there as well. So yeah, I was just really curious about that. That study came out, it was about 5 years ago, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I remember reading it. I remember it got a little bit of it got posted to CNN under their like science thing, and then that created a backlash, and Fox News covered it. Yeah, it was a big thing. That study. Yeah.
Yeah, I read that article. It was all about like how cuckolding can be healthy for some couples. And,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I found it really interesting that I think people, please prove me wrong about this, but I think it was like the only fucking study that was ever done on cuckolding.
I think they said that. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
And it was done for gay cuckolding. I was like, this is awesome for you guys, but like, where's
my study?
There's literally nothing about women. Right? There's nothing.
I think there could definitely be a follow-up study involving women in cuckolding.
Yes, please. So another thing that I noticed from your Twitter is you made a post about something about Saturday Night Live. That you think that one of the writers might be a cuck.
It's just a hunch, but based on quite a few of the sketches, they seem to have a better understanding of kind of the cuckolding kink than just watching the occasional porn video.
I can totally see it. This little dude in his little cubicle writing his script for
right
for the skit. I could just picture it. He's just
I'm getting one out this week. I am. I'm making it on air.
I love that. Yeah, I've noticed that these cuckolding kind of, and very subtle cuckolding kind of themes popping up in different movies or shows and stuff like that. People love to send them to me and be like, oh, look at that. There's cuckolding. Have you noticed like an increase in that over the years or?
Yeah, I definitely have. I mean, I think sometimes explicitly. I've same as you. I've seen like little clips that people have sent or something that there'll be clips of a TV show and it's very explicit. The neighbor is coming over to have sex with the wife while the husband watches. And then sometimes it's much more subtle in advertisement or something like that. But yeah, I've definitely noticed it. I know that it was one of the top genres in porn for a long time. That attracts money. I'm sure that, advertisers and stuff see that. But yeah, it's become much more commonplace. I mean, I think if you asked like any of my friends, any of my coworkers, all about the same age as me or a little younger, they're all going to know what that means. I don't think that would have been the case 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think they at least have a rudimentary understanding of what cuckolding is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that word cuck has been thrown around as a slur in politics and stuff
like
lately.
Like an alt-right kind of slur.
Yeah, which is funny because I think statistically they're the ones fantasizing the most about cuckolding.
I have seen that. I have seen that study that suggests that conservatives and people on the right are definitely more, I think it said something like liberals and people on the left are more into consensual non-consensuality and into BDSM, and then people on the right are more into wife swapping or cuckolding.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because you eroticize what you fear, and you eroticize, what's important to you.
Yes, the taboo factor is definitely amped up for certain individuals.
Yeah,
I get that. And where do you see the trends in cuckolding going in like the next 5-10 years?
I mean, I think what we see in gay cuckolding is, just in gay people in general, there's versatility is key. I mean, people aren't really stuck in their roles. People are very versed. So tops, bottoms, open, not open, semi-open. Like there's a lot of flexibility and versatility. And I kind of feel like that will go in the future. So it won't be necessarily a strict guidelines to cuckolding maybe in the future. And, I think that hopefully with more women getting involved in it as well, you're not going to have as hopefully it won't just be like a little shameful secret that people have in their side pocket. It'll be, be able to be fully experienced by people.
Yes. Well, I wonder if the taboo part of it will dissipate a little bit. Do you think?
I don't know. I heard some discussion on that. I've heard other people talking about it, and some cuckolds were bemoaning the fact that it might be gaining traction because it makes it less taboo for them.
Yeah.
And it makes it less exciting for them. But I don't know. I think that you see gay, straight, it doesn't matter. I think you see a lot more kind of acceptance of non-monogamy.
Yeah.
And so that can take many forms. I honestly don't know if that would lead to an increase in cuckolding or if that would lead to a decrease. But I think that you're going to see a lot more kind of openness to that.
Yeah, I agree. It's not as crazy to think about non-monogamy as it was before. I mean, you open a dating app and you see tons of people with it on their profile, right?
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Making the jump from, non-monogamous relationship to a one-sided open relationship is, in my opinion, not that crazy of a jump. So
yeah, and that's that encapsulated perfectly for me. How I like to experience cuckolding is it is a one-sided open relationship. I like that. I consider myself monogamous, even though I'm in a non-monogamous marriage.
Yes.
But yeah, it gives me comfort and it gives me security to be monogamous. It's just how I'm wired, I guess. But then it super amplifies it when my husband is not.
That seemingly unfairness of
right?
It.
Exactly. Yes. Which I love.
Yeah. I was the same as your partner in the beginning where I didn't understand that part. When my first cuck boyfriend brought it up, I was like, I don't understand why you don't want that same privilege. Like that made no sense to me because I always thought this is about equality and fairness and, meeting each other in the middle and, doing everything you can.
All the things that sound great, right?
Yeah. And then there's this guy who's like, no, I don't want that. I just want you to have it. And I'm like, what? Like, this sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, my husband always says it's like the best of both worlds. He gets the experience of being, of single, of having, hot sex with various people. But then he gets to come home and have security of coming home and gets to experience it with me later on and talk about it. And, and that's what people do after sex anyways. They replay it in their mind over and over again. But now you get to do it with someone else who finds it incredibly hot.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Before we go, just one last question. What do you feel are like the biggest misconceptions when it comes to gay cuckolding or cuckolding in general?
Very good question. I think that there's lots of people who view cuckolding as people being in unstable relationships or people trying to make something work. And I mean, there's that unfairness that you were talking about, which we love and we crave, but people looking at that on the outside think it's one person being taken advantage of, I think.
Right.
Or sometimes they can think that. And they can be for either one. They can either think that the partner, the hot husband or hot wife, is being taken advantage of by being told to do something. And I'm sure that there are circumstances where that happens, but a lot of this is all about consensuality and experiencing things together. And then a lot of people will look at cucks and say, well, they're being taken advantage of, because they're not experiencing it. So I think that, I think people just don't understand how much this is a part of cuckold couples, like how much they are enjoying it and how much this is a partnership going into it. Yeah,
absolutely. For a healthy relationship that never gets boring.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's fun, it's flirty, in the end it's about fun and having communication with people, but there's a lot of other things. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying that basically human nature is that you want to experience the entire emotional spectrum of humanity, and even the scary stuff, and people find safe, controlled spaces to experience that. So if you have, that's kind of going back to eroticizing fear. So if you kind of have some fear or some thoughts about non-monogamy, you can set up a really controlled way of experiencing that with someone and having fun doing it. But it's the good, the scary, the humiliation, all of it is, can equal up to a super hot time.
Oh, yes. That you saying that made me remember what Dr. Justin Lee Miller said on the show. He was explaining that people who have cuckolding fantasies, men who have cuckolding fantasies, tend to have more sensation-seeking personalities, I think is what it was, something along that line, where it is seeking the experiences with those emotions where most people would run away from, where they want to experience that. That is a certain type of person that really is brave enough to do that, but enjoys it in a strange way. I don't want to say strange, because I fucking love the way, like, I think that's amazing, but to most people they would think it's strange. But and he also said that cucks have higher levels of self-esteem and higher levels of self-confidence than the average person. So it really goes against this whole idea of using cuck as a slur of somebody who is pathetic. And
it kind of goes against how, it's being portrayed in pop culture a lot, where it is like a bow beaten, like weak cuckold who's been forced upon, where pretty sure that in 90% of relationships that end up in cuckolding it's the cuck who's pushing it, at least in the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny.
I think that happens in like dom sub relationships too. I think it's always the sub, or who's like really starts the conversation.
Yeah, and pushing it along, and yeah, I know, right? Oh, it's opposite to what you would think, but okay. And where can people go to learn more about you or connect with you? You said your DMs are open on Twitter.
Sure. You can go to my Twitter. That's pretty much what because I had to get rid of Tumblr, so I moved over to Twitter, and tried a couple different places trying to find the right fit. And if anyone has a suggestion of a new social media site, maybe that is open to adult content, and that can allow some conversations back and forth. But right now I'm just mostly on Twitter. It's GayCuckoldHubby. On Twitter, my DMs are open. Hit me up on there. I do have an Instagram, but I don't really use it much anymore. So
yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm just waiting to get kicked off again.
I know, exactly.
I can't believe it's been this long and I haven't been kicked off yet. Right? I mean, this is like my 4th or 5th account, and I'm just like, oh, anytime now.
Exactly. Yeah, there was briefly the group of people who are involved in Gay Cuckolding Me, who like chat and stuff, we've always talked about opening something else. Like, we feel like there needs to be a little bit more communication, because it's a subculture that isn't necessarily understood so well, and we like to connect when we can. There was a website briefly, but that one also got taken off. So we're working on it.
Thank you so much for joining me on the show. This has been so fascinating. I feel like I've learned so much from you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
That's going to be it for this episode of the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you go to venuscuckoldress.com. That's where you can book a private chat with me. You can also submit a question for the show or comment. And you can join the Queen's Quarters fan hub, where you can get all sorts of really awesome perks, including the Helpful Cut tier, where you can send me your keys for key holding, and get access to my secret Snapchat group. So that's venuscuckoldress.com. Oh, and you can also check out the events page to figure out what's going on, including the upcoming Pillow Talk event. Okay, that's going to be it for today's episode. We'll see you next time. Are you single and looking for a female-led relationship? Now there's a boutique-style private matchmaking service for FLR relationship dynamics. It's called Venus Connections. It's totally private. There's no scrolling through profiles or messaging other members. All of the matchmaking is done behind the scenes. You can learn more at venusconnections.com. That's venusconnections.com.